Here I sit in Ghana, West Africa, with these 24 amazing fellows from high school to college who were all here going to see and learn and understand its history. Well, it started even before we came. Oh, real person. I am, yeah. Meeting with the fellows from different perspectives, different ages, different mindsets, different lived experience, asking them questions. What do they know about the NAACP? What do they know about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints? And listening to them.
Today has changed me.
So as I've watched over these past few days, this blossoming occur, a bonding, was like an explosion for me. They have opened up in a way that we didn't even imagine. Lots of them have been given space to have private reflection on who they are. I know that if you don't know who you are, you don't know where you're going. Hey, really?
Hi. Yeah, it's Tatiana. 618.
What a beautiful time this is going to be. It's all of us together making this historic trip.
The Amos C. Brown Fellowship to Ghana is a really unique relationship between the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the NAACP, who've come together to bring a group of students or fellows to Ghana so that they can have some key experiences.
The trip is very diverse, combining two powerful organizations that are both dedicated to service and uplifting mankind through different ways.
I want to, though, hasten to acknowledge Reverend Dr. Amos C. Brown and his wife, Jean. Please.
Reverend Brown he's a servant leader, for sure. He's a visionary, and he is often described as an agitator. You put all those together, and that is a unique leadership trait in my estimation. You know, he's been in civil rights for 70 years. He has been at San Francisco for about 50 years. Since day one, since I've known him, he has been all about the people.
If you truly want to help mankind, you have to come with a servant's heart.
I mean, his name is Amos, a person who bears the burden of the people. And so he certainly lives out his name.
He's been an activist, a world-known theologian, historian, scholar. Above all, he knows how to marry well. Can I get an amen?
And she does as much as he does, whether it's in the church and the community. So it's what I call a good dream team.
Reverend Brown and President Nelson, they have created a bridge between communities, between cultures, between continents, between campuses, faiths, for the upliftment of Jesus through love.
I was there on that moment, that press conference in 2019. You and President Nelson locked arms and came out and announced these great initiatives to make real progress with scholarships, with humanitarian initiatives across the United States.
Hello, Amos. Good to see you.
And to initiate the Amos C. Brown Fellowship to Ghana. The idea of bringing a dozen or so students from the NAACP, a dozen or so students from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, come to Ghana.
With your 17+ million members worldwide, you made sure that every member understands that we are to be real, true disciples of Jesus by helping the disinherited, the marginalized, the other who has been defined as being less than.
My name is Saida Webb. My goal, or what I was looking for here, was, it really was like kind of like it felt very divine. I was like, NAACP and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, like, that's me, hello. And so I kind of just wanted to come and reconcile that gap in my worlds.
There is this significant, somber, and sacred opportunity to come to some of those places that have a history with the transatlantic slave trade.
We know that slavery came from a colonized mentality. None of it has been helpful. None of it is God.
You have prophets and apostles repeatedly talking, condemning racism and calling us to repentance about it.
No man who makes disparaging remarks concerning those of another race can consider himself a true disciple of Christ.
You know, we have this idea, this picture of racism as black and white photos in the textbook of people getting sprayed down with hoses and marching in the tens of thousands in DC. And yet, somehow, I would dare to make the contention that the racism that is going on today, it's more covert because of how subtle and passive it is.
Well, after all, when Jesus preached his first sermon, the Bible said he stood up to read. And he read from Isaiah 61. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, for he's anointed me to set the captives free. Unfortunately, we have too many persons who are, what I consider to be, enslaved to ignorance, misinformation, superstition.
I would say it's definitely an anxiety that a lot of white people have. I know I had it coming on this trip because it does hurt. It's something that I, as a white person, don't always want to talk about in these kind of group settings because it is difficult. It is awkward. It is a hard conversation to have.
And discomfort is painful, and it is brutal, and it is intrinsically human. It's necessary, and it's hard to confront, but it must be confronted head on, especially in a place like this with a program like this that's dedicated to looking at discomfort, understanding where it comes from, and being able to work through it and establish ourselves as ambassadors of peace.
To work with greater civility, to eliminate prejudice of all kinds, and focus on important interests that we have in common.
Fellowship is a specific word, and it has its origin in relationships and friendships. And we're learning how to be ambassadors that show the world how we can move forward in harmony.
It is this collaboration between the NAACP and the LDS Church that, is really providing an opportunity for the world to see how if we come together, any race, ethnicity, and get at the root of the oppression and the racism. And I think this trip to Ghana gets us there.
It's not that everyone needs to have the same idea, have the same belief, go through the same thing. It's that everyone's open to listen, to understand, and open to acknowledge the roles that they play in causing and receiving hurt. That's something I'm looking forward to establishing by the end of the fellowship.
Davis. James.
Dr. Butler's group and my group, go to the front door.
7:49 a.m. for your continued conference safety.
It's one thing to read about a place. It's a completely different experience to be quite immersed in that location, to be there, to smell, to see, to feel, and to hear about the lives of people who were deeply impacted by this history that you learned about in a classroom.
I made a really big effort to immerse myself as much as I could. I tried to try all the food, even the spicy ones, do the dances, even though I can't move my hips like other people can. And I tried to learn the language, even though I've never learned an African language before.
Yes, we've heard the stories. We've sat in class. We've heard the nursery rhyme. We've heard it all. But to literally sit and sink it all in.
It's immersive, it's intense, but it contextualizes something that allows you to really see it differently than you might have understood it when it was only words on paper.
For me, to have an experience where the focus is now on me, where I've come from a world where the focus has marginalized me, it has a different meaning. Coming home to Ghana, my first trip was in 2006. Ghana restored my faith in myself. For many of the participants, it's a healing and restoration. And the next 2 days will have many different needs for everyone that is involved.
One of the moments that was distinctive within this entire experience was the moment when we received our names from the Ashanti region.
I don't know a lot about my lineage or my heritage to where it traces back because of the fact that I was adopted. And so the opportunity to be here and experience things firsthand and just to feel connected to something was really important to me.
We began the day learning about the importance and the significance of kente cloth, a pattern and design that I'd seen throughout my entire lifetime, but I never really understood its significance until this trip.
Let me explain this one.
Understanding that each pattern, each color, each design and thread, it means a value and a virtue.
This simply means don't be jealous. So the question is, how do we get the names and the designs of the kente fabric?
All the girls were on one side, the guys were on another side.
And we're asked to choose our kente cloth for this ritual. And so each person in our delegation chose something that really matched with their spirit, with what the ancestors were calling them to step into.
So we picked our clothes and we were wrapped and fussed over by one of our aunties here, but it really truly felt like family.
We've only been here a couple days so far, but I've made more connections and been able to relate more to the girls here than I have with a lot of people in my life.
Wow, Brianna.
And my head was wrapped and I was adorned with bracelets and I stood up and then all of a sudden I was a new girl. And my friends were new girls and we were looking at each other like the Barbie dolls we never had is kind of how it felt.
There was a stripping of names that when Africans were taken to the Elmina slave castle or the Cape Coast slave dungeons. And so this practice of naming the progeny, the children of those who were stolen from this land, is sacred and it bridges a gap.
I was really moved by the drums and the beats. It felt at one point that my heartbeat started matching the beat of the drums. The image that went through my head was of me or my family, my ancestors stepping off of a slave ship. I had this really distinct image of us, instead of stepping onto one, was stepping off and back onto the land.
It repairs a breach in the sacred memory for those of us who, for so many generations, were not able to participate in the rituals of our ancestors.
It felt like I was doing this for the people that couldn't and that came before me. And there were beautiful, intentional, humble rituals that were done for us as a way of honoring why we were there, returning home.
We enter the sanctuary and the chief comes to me and announces that my name in the Ashanti region is Koja Addo, which means pace setter.
The name I received today was Akosia Nsia, and it means peace and joy.
Ajua Anima, which means preciousness. It felt like when I received that name, it was a confrontation of who I could have been if it weren't for the transatlantic slave trade. It felt very distinctly foreign and alien, but like a mirror of another version of myself.
My name is Akwe Serwe, and it means commitment.
Pierre Bonsu, and it means power and responsibility.
It means helper.
Greatness, power.
I'd like to reintroduce myself. My name is Kofi Priente, and I'm royal.
And they said in a proverb they have that was like, if you kill 2,000 of us, 2,000 will be resurrected. You have all been resurrected. And it felt very cyclical, and it felt like I was standing in place of those that could not stand with me. I felt extremely connected to ancestors that I've never met. And it really also caused me to think about baptisms for the dead. It sewed up a hole in my heart, is what it felt like.
Today was a step for me to continue learning about myself and about my heritage. I know that this specific day I was meant to be here, and I needed to be here. And I just couldn't not praise God and just say thank you.
This verse from Exodus chapter 3, verse 5 kept coming to my mind. And it says, "Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground." And there have been few places in my life that I have gone and felt that high level of reverence. And I felt it again when I was in these places in Ghana, these sites where we saw great injustices occur, things that we believe that Jesus Christ can help us heal from. And there was an invitation at the river to remove our shoes.
Whenever I want to make a journey to my ancestors' rivers, I always do so with my shoes off.
And I felt deeply that that invitation was one to impress upon our minds this great sense of sacredness at this site.
Going to the site of the last bath where our ancestors were cleansed before taking the long walk to the slave dungeons. That's not an experience that you can take by yourself as a 20-year-old and 21-year-old and not have something shaking in you.
Just being there physically was very impactful for me because, you read it in history books and things and you just like, oh, that happened kind of a long time ago, but it's not really that long ago, and those places are still there and you can still smell the stench in some of those places.
Even my greatest imagination, whatever I can think, does not compare to the agony and trauma that my ancestors faced.
We walked the Ancestral River. We went to the Cape Coast dungeon. I experienced many emotions. I experienced anger, I experienced hate, I experienced remorse, sadness. There was not much light in there. They didn't have any restroom in there. And so for me, it was impactful because I just imagined my brother or my father and I in there, my sister and my mother in there. And it definitely changed my perspective and the way I looked at that.
They were no longer chiefs or priests or queen mothers. When they went into those dungeons, they were stripped of everything that made them a personality, a human, and they came up a Negro. They came up as a person without a history, without a language, without a culture.
As learners,
Our job is to take in this information and become the change that we desire. But I have to be very honest, be respectful of how people feel. I'm open to learning about somebody else.
And as I reflect on my experience, the word that comes to mind is forgiveness. As I was filled with those emotions, the most powerful one was forgiveness, because forgiveness was a choice of mine.
I knew the stories, I knew the horrors, and being there, it made it more concrete. It didn't necessarily change all the details I knew, but it made me realize that this is not going away. This is not like a scratch. We can just put a Band-Aid on and one day we'll be better. But that's okay because it's an identity, right? This is a people we're talking about here. These are other living human beings that relate to a past historical event, and that is something we can't take away from them.
It is not my job to forgive those who did my ancestors wrong by putting them in those dungeons and in those horrible circumstances. They need to seek forgiveness from my ancestors. But I have forgiveness and I'm willing to move forward.
It has been a sweet personal experience for me to come back to a region and to step into a river where enslaved Black people walked, and to see the evidence of the brutality with which they were treated. This is in no way a judgment of anyone else's feelings, and over the 44 years of being a member of the church and a disciple of Jesus, I think of myself and see myself foremost as a child of God. My sadness is swallowed up in the joy and the hope that comes through Jesus Christ. So it's a very different feeling that I have. I'm urged and inspired to do family history work, not become angry at others.
Something that has been difficult throughout the trip to navigate is the differences in lived experience, and also a difference in an understanding of each other's lived experiences.
As members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we're asked to make commitments about our care for each other as brothers and sisters, children of God.
I am someone who likes to fix things, make things all neat and tidy with a bow on top, and kind of help people heal and get better.
Part of the fruits of that covenant is to learn how to mourn with each other and to comfort each other and to understand the things that have hurt and how that hurt can be something that ends up allowing us to walk forward together.
This is something that it's okay that it can stay and hurt.
My love for the gospel has always and always will override worldly pains, because racism is worldly. It is of the world. It is not of God.
I see this as a necessary practice in being human, in coming together and engaging one another in ideas, to laugh with one another, to break bread with each other, to lament with each other.
This is history, and this is more than history, it's identity. I think that's the most important part of me going to those physical places during this trip.
When you walk across a new terrain, a new city, a new country with someone else, when you're able to be uncomfortable in a new environment.
And we need to be able to talk to them about and hear how they feel about it.
When you allow your equilibrium to be disrupted and you're trying to place the pieces together with someone who seems different, but the more you engage with that person, you find more and more of yourself in them.
And I just wish there was a way that the worldly feelings of pride and defensiveness and a dedication to making things easy and digestible, I wish we could let that go in the name of truly loving each other, because you really can't love anyone that you don't understand.
And when we have that mindset, the conversations I found for myself become a lot less awkward and more constructive.
I believe that it was divine that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and the NAACP and all of the rest of the fellows could come together in the spirit of unity to grieve, to love, to forgive, and to realize the power that we all uniquely hold to make this world a better place, but still reflect on the grave injustices that were faced by all of our ancestors many, many years ago.
Knowing that we have an opportunity to look at that history together, to come to some common understanding about that history, and then to ask ourselves, how do we lock arms and move forward together?
All of the giveaways, clothing will be on these tables. Any kind of foods or snacks will be on that table.
To see President Nelson's vision and prophecy and promise of perfect peace and harmony, of bridges of cooperation instead of walls of segregation, to actually live that and watch it play out before our eyes over these few days has been wonderful.
Kezia, this is gonna be the best. You're gonna be the best one here, okay?
To me, it was like it washed away our lived experience and focused on everything that we have in common with each other, which is so much and so much bigger than the worldly things that we may fight or bicker over.
I think these are great opportunities that start first with us deciding that this is not just an independent experience alone, but that it's a vulnerable experience that we're willing to share with others for the sake of this outcome that's called belonging and loving and unity.
What's your name? Which one? Justin? Which one?
In many ways, music is the lingua franca of the movement. Music was a way of bringing people together. And when you think about it, the ethic of music, the ethic of some of the best traditions of our music, such as jazz, illustrates what we seek to create within this world. When you bring the piano together and the trap drum and the tuba together, you wouldn't think that these instruments would naturally play together. But a jazz ethic would allow for this a mixture of instruments to not only play with each other, but also have an opportunity to solo, to express the genius of each instrument in its own creative way, and also allow each instrument to join together in beautiful harmony. Isn't that really what the beloved community is all about?
And so we ask ourselves, how do we move forward together? How do we comfort others better? How do we express love for humankind and for mankind, become more serviceable to God's people and to each other? To believe in Jesus Christ more, belong to Him more, and to become like the Savior more.
What would you say your takeaway is? What's impacted you the most?
I just feel like the biggest thing I'm taking away is that no matter how far or diverse a culture may seem, you really are a lot closer than you think, and there's a lot more to relate to.
I think for me, the thing that impacted me the most was learning about Ghanaian history and the impact that it has, because it made me reflect on American history and the way I can be proud of both histories as an African American and as someone who is descended from people from Ghana, but also places like Nigeria, Cameroon?
I do have ancestry from Ghana and from other parts of Africa. So being here among these people and engaging in the culture, it helped me understand the beauty that lies within this culture, beauty that goes beyond anything I've learned prior to coming here.
And if we go back in history and we look at when a people have come over and have gotten better and have evolved, it's been because of some sort of bridge. And that's what I've taken from this, to allow a bridge to just let us walk forth so that we can become better together.
I think I've learned that in order to love people, sometimes it means giving them space to heal.
Trust me, this one is like, oh yeah. You thought the other one was loud? Oh man.
But let's go. Let's hear it.
All right.
My biggest takeaway from this experience is the reality and possibility of deep connections that can be made with people who have many differences in their lives, different backgrounds, religions, ideas, upbringings.
Guys, don't look at me. I laugh. I don't know how to control my laugh. During this fellowship trip, I was able to gain a deeper understanding of the cultural heritage of the Ghanaian people, as well as my Black ancestors. It really cultivated the desire to just be more connected with those around me by trying to immerse myself in their lives the same way like I immersed myself in this amazing culture that, you know, my brothers and sisters live in, and I loved it.
Just seeing the different dynamics of how people interact and how people share joy and sadness and love is so much different than it is in the US. And just experiencing those things has altered, I guess, my brain chemistry pretty much.
I feel like we did life together.
Yeah. Like it's been more than these 10 days.
Yes, it felt like a lifetime.
And I also took away just the importance of leading with love. And I've seen the impact, at least personally, how I could have led with love in a different way to foster and create just a better space of community and openness. And I saw what it was like to be led with love and how that made it so much easier for me to accept all of the nuance and the richness and the complexity of people's emotions and lived experience.
So throughout this trip, there's been a main theme about identity for me. And to be able to see where ancestors have come from and to see what they've been capable of ignites this passion within me to want to honor their sacrifices. And going home, I feel this responsibility to want to help others come to know about who they are, what they're capable of, and allow them to fully embrace themselves.
Then can you tell me what you're going to do about it?
I think I've been stopped in my life for fear of these differences or offending, but I think this has given me more power to be bold in serving people.
I'm going to look for opportunities when I get home to allow people to express their voices, and more specifically to be intentional with the relationships I already have and giving them chances to express how they feel and what they need.
I'm going to turn empathy into action because I feel like when you're able to empathize with someone, you really feel what they're feeling and you really want to help them because you love them.
Honestly, I'm gonna look back at the pictures and the videos I took of all the happy children, because the children I'm with all day are not always happy. And so just to remind myself that there are bigger and better things, and to try and, be like a child.
It's my instinct to respond with action. Okay, what can we do about that? How can we fix that? How can we spread the word about that? And so I think what I've learned from this fellowship and I've seen and benefited from is stillness and holding space for those emotions, and how those moments of stillness actually give me the greatest moments of revelation and inspiration.
So to sum up, I would say my biggest takeaway is that forgiveness is for me and for my ancestors. not so much for the people who did those crimes, but for me, because it allows me to move forward with a spirit of hope, resilience, and to be that beacon of light in this world to make sure that it never happens again to anyone.
And of course, as we learn and walk together, we can sing amen at the end.
And that's been a privilege to remember that some of the work that I have been called to do also involves reaching out beyond even the borders of my own faith and into the lives of people who likewise share the same outcomes that I do, which is a more peaceful world, a more harmonized world, and one where we want to see unity blossom.
I think this fellowship also helps us to understand, what could be. So it provides for us a vision of what the world can be if we actually come together, not only, in Ghana, but in America. We're all God's children.
In so many ways, we won't know the full benefit of this experience until years after this pilgrimage.
We want those that came here to have a personal experience, to really feel how can they become an ambassador for peace and for harmony and for unity and for understanding.
Amen. The students have demonstrated what real servant leadership looks like, to lift as you climb.
I hope that we'll all continue trying to expand our worldviews and become more understanding of others' perspectives and cultures as we walk through life.
The experience with the people is what I focused on the most. I felt with them, like they made me feel like I was at home.
There's more work to do, absolutely. They need more support. We're gonna move it forward. And I've watched these fellows do some of the work.
Human beings tend to hate each other because they fear each other. They fear each other because they do not know each other. And they do not know each other because of a lack of communication. This fellowship at best tears down barriers and walls across racial, religious, cultural, and social walls. We used to sing a song in the elementary school, the more we get together, the happier we'll be.
I'm starting to realize now from this trip that even though we were of different faiths, we were still well grounded with Jesus Christ, and that was the center for everything that we've done in this trip and everything that we will be doing for the rest of our lives.
To see young men and women who are our future open up that divide and say, let's recreate it differently.
That when we come together and work on enterprises that are for the betterment of humankind, we're able to fulfill the injunction, the admonition of Jesus, who said in his own words, "Think not that I came to be served, but to be a servant."
That's what this relationship is doing with the NAACP and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Yes, there was a divide, but now we're bringing repair. Now we're bringing restoration and forgiveness. And we're acknowledging our flaws. We can just say, here we are. Let's go.
I have the faith and the good feeling that you will, in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Sr., hold your hope and continue to let your light shine, that your Father in heaven may be glorified, and not for self-aggrandizement. There's too much darkness down here. We need to be enlighteners. We need to turn the light on. And there's an old song that says, "This is the light of mine. I'm going to let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm going to let it shine." Jesus gave it to me.
That's right.
This little light that God has given you, that the world may see the good works that have been rendered by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for the development and the common good of all humankind. God bless you.
Thank you, dear Pastor.
It's a joy.
It is a joy. Thank you.